Hello, Khenpo. After listening to your teaching, Actually, this particular question has been on my mind for quite a long time. It's just as you said, our world is very impure. It's because we have greed and ignorance, and I completely agree with this.
But what feels helpless is that sometimes it's not because of our afflictive obstacles, but because our wisdom is limited.
It's that we don't know much. It's a problem of cognitive obscurations. When something happens, we try many different ways to find a solution. But because our wisdom is insufficient, we are unable to possess or to foresee exactly what the consequences will be.
So I feel that the world is truly very impure right now. Half of the reason is because of our own ignorance, but the other half might be due to our fundamental lack of knowledge. And can we admit to this kind of ignorance?
It might have nothing to do with our greed or our inherent flaws. I'm not sure if what I said is correct, so I would like to ask for your guidance.
Actually, as we practice and live in this modern world now and today, there is sometimes a kind of strong opposition and conflict between the afflictive obstacles and the cognitive obstacles that we face in our spiritual journey. Strictly speaking, the afflictive obstacles are eliminated at the end of the 7th bhumi. As for the cognitive obstacles, from the 8th to the 10th bhumi, according to the Uttara Tantra Shastra and according to some treatises by Maitreya Bodhisattva, there is a clear distinction between eliminating afflictive obstacles and cognitive obstacles. Therefore, ordinary people are hindered by all kinds of obstacles, and it's not even appropriate to talk about cognitive obstacles yet. Cognitive obstacles are a very subtle kind of hindrance. But in this world, why is it that we so often have many opportunities to commit negative actions, while our practice of virtuous deeds is extremely weak? Actually, the Buddha explained in the sutras that this world is entering the degenerate age of the Dharma. We often talk about the 5 turbidities of this evil world, the turbidity of views and the turbidity of afflictions. People's views are becoming more degraded and afflictions are growing stronger. The world is becoming more corrupt, and in such an environment, it is indeed very difficult to manifest pure land through a pure mind. However, from the perspective of the fundamental nature, especially for a practitioner, when one truly engages in practice, by the time one reaches the final stage, a state of complete and absolute purity can indeed truly manifest in reality. This is also confirmed by the biographies of eminent monks and great masters throughout history. Even through our own practice over just a few short years and our understanding of Buddhism, we can be confident that as long as we practice diligently, our afflictions will gradually lessen, and moreover, this world will, from the perspective of self-manifestation, ultimately become increasingly beautiful.
Master, there is a student from the Department of Communication Engineering at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. She has a question, and I will relay it on her behalf here. Homage to the greatly compassionate Master. May I ask, Master, according to traditional classifications of life, there are animals, plants, and microorganisms. Are bacteria and viruses among these microorganisms considered sentient beings? If so, then when we take medicine or disinfect, does that also count as killing? How should we thoughtfully approach and handle this situation?
It's like this. As I mentioned earlier, if we acknowledge or recognize that plants do indeed have life, the Buddha stated in the Shurangama Sutra that this is considered an externalist view. Nowadays, many Dharma teachers and some people often say that plants also shouldn't be eaten just like animal flesh. This kind of statement you can check for yourselves. In the Shurangama Sutra, it is clearly said that this is an externalist view. As I previously mentioned about the life of animals, a life that possesses all 5 aggregates is called a true life. Now, there are some bacteria that we simply can't see with the naked eye, including some extremely tiny bacteria, as well as insects in the water that are invisible to the naked eye. If we harm these, is there any fault or wrongdoing? There is no fault. During the dialogue between the Buddha and Venerable Ananda, once, when an arhat was carefully drawing water with the perceptive eyes of an arhat, he saw that the water was full of countless tiny living creatures. These are things we cannot see with our naked eyes. But the eyes of an arhat are like a modern microscope. He could see clearly that there were an extraordinary number of bacteria. After that, he didn't dare to drink the water and wondered what to do, so he asked the Buddha. The Buddha said that we should rely on what we can see directly with our own naked eyes. For example, if we can see some small insects with our naked eyes, we must not step on and kill them. If we do, it is considered an offense. But for those we cannot see, the Buddha said there is no fault. So when it comes to such profound principles of cause and effect, we cannot act based on our own imagination. We should rely on the authority of the Buddhist scriptures to make our choices. This is the choice of the wise.
Homage to kind Guru, 3 Jewels, Student Philosophy, Chinese University of Hong Kong. I would like to ask the Guru, if I may, that is to say, if in this lifetime we diligently accumulate merit, engage in practice, and can be reborn in the Western Pure Land with our karmic baggage. But now we are in the Saha world, which is the pure land of Shakyamuni Buddha, yet all we see is rubble everywhere. If I still carry self-clinging and arrogance that have not been completely eliminated, even if I arrive in the Pure Land, will I still see nothing but rubble and debris everywhere? My second question is about the inseparability of clarity and emptiness as taught in Buddha's 3 turnings of the Dharma wheel. What is the state of clarity? Since clarity and emptiness are inseparable, why refer to one as emptiness and the other as clarity? I request Guru's guidance.
You all keep applauding. By the time you go home, your hands will hurt. Just now, you mentioned rebirth in the Pure Land while carrying karma. Actually, rebirth while carrying karma is an important topic. Not long ago, I also gave a teaching on the Pure Land's Amitabha Sutra. I also taught on the version translated by Bodhiruchi, the Maharatnakuta Sutra, Assembly of the Tathagata of Infinite Life. In other words, the Sutra of Infinite Life. I haven't finished teaching the Sutra of Infinite Life yet. During the process of teaching the Pure Land Sutras, I discovered that sentient beings in the Saha world can be reborn in the Pure Land while carrying karma. But this rebirth with karma, relying on Amitabha Buddha's power of vows and one's own power of faith, after arriving in the land of ultimate bliss, one depends on the Buddha's power and one's own power of aspiration. And then, in the entire Pure Land, everything, including the ground made of gold, the appearance of the 7 treasures, 5 treasures, and 6 treasures, and all kinds of pure phenomena, instantly manifest. Then, in the Pure Land, after hearing Amitabha Buddha's teachings, one gradually attains the first ground bodhisattva stage. Some, upon arrival, immediately reach this stage. Some have not truly attained it yet, but after arriving, all will reach the stage of non-retrogression. Therefore, we should approach it in this way, leaving the Saha world and being reborn in the Pure Land. It can be understood like this. Now, regarding the state where clarity and emptiness are inseparable, in the ultimate truth, clarity is emptiness, and emptiness is clarity. As the Heart Sutra states, form is not different from emptiness, and emptiness is not different from form. This is the teaching of the second turning of the Dharma wheel by Shakyamuni Buddha, where the term clarity is not advocated. It only says form. Form is not different from emptiness, and emptiness is not different from form. In the third turning of the Dharma wheel, especially in Vajrayana, in the Kalachakra Tantra, the original form is a manifestation of luminosity at this point. In the true state, clarity and emptiness are inseparable and indistinguishable. However, when we try to express it in language, there is a certain aspect of clarity. This clarity is not conceived by the discriminating thoughts in my mind, nor is it something that can be expressed through language. It is an inconceivable state. This is the only way it can be described in words.
Master, hello and greetings. I am a master's student in the Department of Economics at the prestigious Chinese University here. I actually have 2 questions. The first question is, Master, you mentioned environmental protection, which I care about. Once, while watching Focus Interview, I saw an episode called The Digging of a Jinn of Nostoc Flagelliform. It showed much land and grassland destroyed, while those digging the grass do so because they lack enough food. They only earn 20 cents per kilo, so I wonder, for someone who can't even eat enough or get an education, when we talk to them about environmental protection, how can they understand or accept it? So, that brings me to my second question. At that time, seeing so many people made him heartbroken, as he did not know he had a past or would have a future life. So he created some karma. It's just like a person with diabetes. I tell him not to eat sugar, not to eat bananas. I really hope he can do it, but he doesn't listen to me. So at this particular moment, I truly and genuinely feel as though I'm standing on the right side. Whether it's with my family or with a stranger, I genuinely want to help them. But instead, it often causes the other person to feel unhappy, confused, or troubled. I don't know if I should keep insisting or if I should just say, that's enough. In other words, telling them a second time is already enough. Whether they accept it or not depends on their own understanding and their karma. Thank you, Master.
Your question is very good. First of all, it is important to note that regarding environmental protection, some teachers and students here at Chinese University of Hong Kong have also talked about it today. Actually, if Shakyamuni Buddha were still alive today in our world, he would also step forward and show concern for our current environmental issues. Some people think that environmental protection is not explicitly mentioned in the ancient Buddhist scriptures, and it is often not directly addressed. But in the Vinaya Sutra and texts, the Vinaya Sutra is the important teachings the Buddha gave to dedicated practitioners of the Hinayana path and discipline. In it, there are indeed many profound teachings and instructions, including, for example, that we should not unnecessarily harm plants and trees. For instance, in the monastic precepts, it is forbidden to urinate or defecate in clean water. We are also strictly not allowed to pollute clean, natural grasslands, and this includes cutting down any trees or digging up the earth in these areas. There are many such precepts. Anyone who has studied the Vinaya knows this well. Oh, so it turns out that the Buddha not only protected animals in this way, but also gave teachings on protecting our environment. There are many such teachings and very clear regulations. Therefore, even now, including here in our Tibetan region, everyone knows that Tibet has made significant contributions not only to human culture, but also, for example, is known for having some of the cleanest and purest water in the world. It can be said that many of these resources mostly originate from the snowy plateau. However, in our Tibetan region, because many people's level of education is relatively low, their thoughts and education, as well as various other conditions and circumstances, have not yet fully matured to their full extent. So just as you mentioned earlier, in some remote areas, people might, for the sake of their own small immediate interests, seriously damage and destroy the environment, causing severe harm. This phenomenon is also quite common in Han regions at times. But I think everyone here is very concerned about environmental conservation. Personally, I am also very interested in this very important area. In terms of environmental protection and preservation of life, I feel that as Buddhists living in the world today, we should also do what little we can, making an effort to contribute in our own small ways and take some positive action whenever possible. Environmental protection and the preservation of life are both urgent and extremely important matters. In this process, we often see that Buddhism's approach to environmental protection is indeed quite different from that of others. For example, Buddhist temples are typically located by lush green mountains and clear sparkling waters, or in very quiet and tranquil natural environments. Many people, upon arriving at a temple, naturally feel drawn in by the peaceful and harmonious surroundings. Also, if we take a closer look at the life story of Shakyamuni Buddha, we can see that there is indeed a certain connection to forests. I often think that at the very beginning, the Buddha was born in the beautiful and serene Lumbini garden under the shade of a majestic Ashoka tree. Then after the Buddha renounced his royal position, he practiced rigorous austerities for 6 long years under a tree by the tranquil Nairanjana river. Later, when the Buddha attained enlightenment, it was beneath the sacred Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya. After attaining enlightenment, he first went to the renowned deer park to turn the wheel of Dharma. According to the Indian language, the deer park was actually a large forest with many herds of wild deer. He turned the wheel of Dharma in the forest. Finally, when he manifested parinirvana, it was also under a sal tree that he did so. So, from his birth to his final manifestation of parinirvana, everything was connected to the forest. At that time, he did not choose some of the things we have now, and India back then certainly didn't have the reinforced concrete structures we see today. But he did not stay in other tiled houses or other buildings either. Everything was related to nature and to his own life. It is precisely because of this origin that whether in Tibet, India, or even in Han regions, all the eminent monks and great masters throughout history, when they attained realization, most of them did so in especially quiet and peaceful forests or inside caves or in very beautiful and stunning environments. So I think in Buddhism, there is actually a lot of basis for environmental protection. The second question you just raised is...
So my second question is...
All right, now, let me think. I remember. Your second question is, and judging from your expression, it really does seem that you do, in fact, acknowledge this. And you care a lot about the real existence of past and future lives for humans. You also really want to help the people around you, but the people around you are probably, for the most part, different from us Tibetans. In the Han region, for most people around you, many of your relatives and friends don't believe in Buddhism. So when you try to persuade them to study Buddhism or believe in karma, you put in a lot of effort, but it's very difficult. But for us Tibetans, basically, in contemporary times, a few young people in society have been westernized or sinicized, and there are still, in particular, a very small number of people who don't believe in karma, which we occasionally come across. But the vast majority, 99%, believe in karma. Some families even have a monastic member at home. They feel extremely honored and genuinely proud of what they have achieved. That's how they see it. As for the question you just asked, I think if you mention it once or twice and then just leave it up to fate, not caring anymore, that's not how it should be. When Shakyamuni Buddha was still on the path to enlightenment, there was a time when, in order to guide just one person, he made continuous efforts for millions of years. Just to guide a single person, he persisted for millions of years, because at that time people had lifespans of over 10,000 years. It wasn't just 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, or even a lifetime. It wasn't like that. It was over millions of years. He put in so much effort just to plant virtuous roots in the continuum of a single person. So I think as long as we keep working hard and making consistent and continuous efforts, step by step, one day this person will eventually practice virtuous deeds. Even in our Buddhist institute, there were some people who didn't believe in Buddhism at first. Some, after their children graduated from college, became monastics at the institute. After ordaining, their parents were strongly opposed and did not believe in Buddhism, but later, their children kept talking to their parents again and again. After 2 or 3 years, gradually, the parents also came and became monastics. There are many such cases. There was one person, quite interestingly, at first when her child became a monastic there. She chased after her with a knife, saying, "Either I kill you, or if you become a monastic today, I'll kill myself." At that time, many of us tried to persuade her not to commit suicide, and eventually she reluctantly went back. 5 years later, without needing a knife or force, she came to ordain herself willingly and happily. Now, she and her child are both living as very pure and devoted monastics. So sometimes our personal views and behaviors as people can actually change. Perhaps we all need to put in some extra effort together as a group.
Hello, Master. A student from the economics department at the Chinese University of Hong Kong would like to ask, in today's society, where business and economics increasingly dominate many aspects of our lives, how should we view the contradiction between environmental protection and consumption?
Actually, I have thought about this question myself as well. In our current society, the pressure to survive in big cities is getting heavier and heavier, and the pace of life is getting faster and faster. This is the kind of era we live in. In this era, it is important to note that sometimes consumption and the protection of our environment are indeed in conflict with each other. But Buddhism has a particular and thoughtful view on life, a distinctively Buddhist perspective on living. The Buddhist view of life does not advocate for excessive luxury or the pursuit of extreme material wealth, nor does it promote living like a beggar with nothing at all to eat or wear. In this way, nowadays, whatever we do, as some people say, without money, you can't take a single step. This kind of thinking also exists. But the Buddha's perspective on life is that once our basic needs are met, we should consciously cultivate contentment and gradually work to reduce our desires. I don't particularly pursue these desires with extravagance. In this way, in modern society, people shouldn't live solely for competition. Nowadays, I think most people, in fact, some things aren't even necessary, but because of competition, because he has a nice house, I want to buy a nice house too. Because he has a nice car, I want to buy a nice car too. If I don't have a car among my classmates and peers, sometimes it really feels like I can't hold my head up high with dignity, so I have to compete with them fiercely. Living like this is truly exhausting and draining, so I think that people should, in principle, basically be able to satisfy their needs according to their own fortune. At times like this, life is much happier. At this point, your spending and your whole lifestyle won't have any major or significant conflicts. Also, in our current and ongoing efforts toward environmental protection, there is excessive use of things like electricity and water by people and a lot of waste. Speaking of this waste, I think sometimes, I've been to Singapore before, Singapore actually has a really good concept in this regard. But recently, what I saw in Hong Kong is that during the day and at night, all the lights in the high-rise buildings are on. I was thinking, even when I looked at around 2 or 3 in the morning, all the lights were still on. If everyone is already asleep, all those lights just left on like that, it really seems like such an unnecessary waste of energy and resources. Maybe they're all working late night shifts, but there are still many issues here that are worth our careful reflection.
Hello, Master. I am from the Department of Electronics at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. Another practitioner and I have met you before in Sirtar. So I wanted to ask about your well-being. May I ask, how is your health now? I have another question. Previously, I asked a master a question, and the master's answer was about helping the world. I also hope that I can help the world like you do, Master, but I don't know how to go about it. For example, since I study electronics, would delving into technology be helpful? If it is helpful, then technology should bring both advantages and disadvantages. If it isn't helpful, so then what can I possibly do in order to truly benefit the world? Thank you very much.
I think whether you study electronics or other fields of technology, likewise, in fact, the human mind is truly very important. If you truly have a strong belief in karma and a sincere conviction to help all sentient beings in your heart, then, in this way, you can always find various ways and opportunities to do so. We all have opportunities, whether as lay people or monastics. If everyone in society is only focused on themselves, if people are extremely selfish and self-centered, no matter if you study Buddhism, including us monastics, even though we wear these robes, if deep within ourselves, ultimately at our core, what always exists in our hearts is self-promotion and self-centeredness, and we never think about the Dharma or about sentient beings, then you might not even count as a Buddhist at all. So whether it's your profession or your future path, I can't say for sure, but for everyone, no matter where you are in life, in any corner of your daily existence, I think the most meaningful and most valuable thing is to never change this intention to benefit all sentient beings. If we make it a priority to put our altruistic intention first, then, from a worldly perspective, our future will gradually become brighter. If anyone spends every single day thinking only about themselves, then gradually society's recognition of them and their behavior in various aspects may fall behind. There might not necessarily be any progress.
Master, there is a recent graduate from the accounting department of City University of Hong Kong who contacted me recently seeking guidance. He said that he is a Buddhist himself and practitioner with sincere faith, but he can't answer the questions from his friends around him adequately. His friends ask him, Buddhists spend a lot of time reciting sutras every day. They also say that reciting sutras can sometimes help others, and his friends ask him, why not use that time to actually help people directly instead? And how exactly does reciting sutras help others? Does just chanting them out loud really have any effect?
Actually, in this modern world and society today, if he is a college student studying Buddhism seriously and deeply with genuine interest, I think he still needs to learn more about Buddhist teachings and philosophy in depth and detail. After studying Buddhism thoroughly and carefully over time, as a college student, he should be able to answer questions from non-Buddhists or those who don't study Buddhism at all confidently.
My first suggestion is that I hope he continues to study diligently. Secondly, if people in the world think that reciting sutras can solve problems or help others, then why not help others directly? This kind of question,
I think the person asking this question may not really understand Buddhism very well. Actually, Buddhism has never claimed that reciting sutras can solve every problem 100% of the time. Even a traditional Chinese medicine doctor today wouldn't dare to say that he can cure all illnesses just by relying on Chinese medicine. No one has ever in actual fact said that. However, we also can't say, since you are a Chinese medicine doctor, why do you rely on this particular method to treat people? Why don't you personally help all other sentient beings? After all, every sentient being's illness is different. So when we use sutra recitation to counteract or assist and support sentient beings, it has its own specific function. However, the person raising this question may not have thought it through in detail. So I think there are actually many similar situations like this in the world, including the benefits described in Buddhist scriptures and Buddhism itself. We never claim 100%, but after reciting sutras, including myself, I often experience this personally. When I get sick or encounter adverse conditions, I quickly make an offering and ask the monks to recite sutras, and after the recitation, maybe those who don't believe in Buddhism think I might be superstitious, but I have absolute faith in this, and then my health improves almost immediately. Just now, you mentioned someone wasn't feeling well. Was it you or me? How did you put it? Just now he said, who was it? Was it him? No, it was someone else, right?
It seems that someone recently asked a question regarding the teacher's health and well-being.
All right, my health is quite good, no problem at all.
Master, let me tell you, a donor said, I believe in Buddhism deeply and sincerely and feel that romantic love is truly impermanent.
What is love?
It's simply impermanent.
Impermanent.
Love is often impermanent. Honestly, I'm also not particularly interested in romantic relationships, so should I really get married just for the sake of getting married? Is love really the foundation of marriage?
I think whether or not to get married is a personal decision. As a monastic practitioner and renunciant living in solitude, it's probably not very appropriate or right for me to decide for others at all. But as for so-called marriage or romantic love and relationships, actually, from the perspective of Buddhist teachings, there is a certain feeling about this. For example, before getting married, most young people often feel that it's something to look forward to, that it's the beginning of happiness. But in reality, from our own point of view, after you get married, perhaps from that very moment on, you have already handed the key to your freedom over to the other person. From then on, you are essentially trapped in a state where you no longer have true freedom. Most people often see it as true happiness, as a genuine source of joy. So this is a Buddhist perspective. Of course, from a worldly point of view, there are other ways to interpret it. As for these interpretations, I think those of you present, especially some of the elderly here, have experience, so let them answer.
Master, there is currently a middle school student standing here right now. He says, homage to the greatly kind master. I am a middle school student and I would really like to study medicine in the future. However, in medical courses, we have to perform a lot of animal dissections. May I ask, Master, does this involve the fault of killing? Thank you, Master, for your guidance. It definitely does. As one generous donor noted, I work at the Institute of Religious Studies at the Shanghai Academy of Social Sciences. I am currently a visiting scholar at Chungchi College, Chinese University of Hong Kong. I am currently engaged in research on the spread and development of modern Tibetan Buddhism. Could you please briefly introduce the current situation of exchanges and interactions between Han and Tibetan Buddhism? Thank you very much.
This is how I see it, especially since the 1920s, a time that brought about many important changes. Numerous eminent monks, virtuous teachers, and distinguished scholars from the Han region have traveled to Tibetan area to pursue their studies and gain deeper insight into Buddhist teachings. Now, in our Tibetan region, there are numerous dedicated scholars in various monasteries who are exploring and conducting research. And there are also many eminent monks and great teachers from Tibetan area who have gone to the Han region, including myself. I also came to Hong Kong in the 1990s. It was from that time that we began. Back then, when I traveled to the United States together with my teacher, we stayed at the Bayou Center. Even then, we clearly observed that Hong Kong was much more open than the mainland in welcoming people. Many eminent Tibetan Buddhist monks and teachers from Nepal, including some from India. Many Dharma centers have been established here over the years. At that time, we all felt very delighted and rejoiced at this. The Chinese mainland did not have this yet at the time. The first time I went was in 1990, and at that time I felt that there are many Tibetan Buddhist centers here, and everyone is learning from each other. Because Tibetan Buddhism truly has many very complete systems. So, in this way, there was a kind of mutual communication and understanding between the parties involved. But later on, now in Tibetan area, there are also many ordained monks, including those at the Advanced Buddhist Academy in Beijing, as well as at Peking University. At Peking University, there are also many involved in Tibetan Buddhism. Just now, on our side here, some Han Chinese Buddhist monks are also pursuing their advanced doctorates there at the university. Some of our Tibetan scholars and students are also studying there diligently and actively. Exchanges in all aspects and areas should be increasing steadily over time. There is close and meaningful interaction in Buddhism teachings and practice. I truly and deeply believe. Because in today's modern and interconnected world of rapid globalization, space is actually getting smaller and smaller every single day continuously. The inclusive nature and open spirit of Buddhism is crucial, whether it's in Taiwan, Hong Kong, or the mainland of China and beyond. Everyone is very welcoming and accommodating to each other. This time I saw at the academic seminar at the Chinese University, there were also Theravada Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, and Chinese Buddhism represented. And there were people from all kinds of different and diverse cultural backgrounds from around the world. In the future, it is also necessary and important for us to actively engage and interact with other religions, including Christianity, Catholicism, and also Taoism. When I was in the Han region many years ago, I myself studied Tibetan Buddhism in depth. But I have great respect and deep reverence for all authentic forms of Buddhism and its teachings. I am also very interested and curious in other genuine religions and traditional cultures from around the world. So, in this respect, different cultures of humanity each have their own unique values and important contributions. That's why, this time, when I saw our Chinese university, by embracing such an inclusive, broad-minded and open-minded attitude, and by serving and viewing the diverse world cultures in this way, I truly rejoice. This, of course, also includes our Larung 5 Sciences Buddhist Academy. I was thinking, back then, our revered His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok, he was truly visionary. In the 1980s, he was the first to propose going to Mount Wutai. In 1987, he requested to go to Mount Wutai. At that time, when it came to going to Mount Wutai, basically, there was no tradition of eminent Tibetan monks and masters traveling to Han Chinese regions. Now, there are many more. Nowadays, there are also some truly great monks and masters, but there are also quite a few who, under the name of Tibetan Buddhism, behave inappropriately. So, in the Han regions, including Hong Kong and Taiwan. When I went to Taiwan before, there were also such opinions. When people mention Rinpoche, some will ask, is this a good Rinpoche or a bad Rinpoche? There are such opinions even now, as people say. In cities in the Han regions, there are indeed both good and bad ones. This is true in both Han Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism. And it's not just within our Buddhist community. even in Christianity, as well as in other schools of thought, and even among government officials nowadays. There are also good and bad ones. Some are corrupt, even worse than us Buddhists. Truly frightening. I think as long as humanity exists, there will always be opposites, positive and negative. That's just how it is. But back in 1987, when the Dharma King, the wish-fulfilling jewel, went to the Han region, at that time, there was basically no interaction in terms of Buddhism. Then he went to Mount Wutai, and from that point on, many students from the Han region began visiting various places, mainly around our Larung 5 Sciences Buddhist Academy. Scholars from both regions also started exchanging ideas. Now, in many aspects, there is mutual understanding and learning between the two sides. This is very necessary. Humanity should have a very peaceful, democratic, and open mindset. With such an attitude, people will naturally feel very comfortable, relaxed, and happy. We shouldn't be like some Buddhists nowadays, who only accept their own way and nothing else, and are not open to any other religions. I think that's unnecessary. In Tibetan Buddhism, we are very welcoming to both the exoteric and esoteric schools, and to any sect. This includes our Larungar itself. Whether it's Han Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, or any other major world religion, as long as it is suitably qualified and authentic, we welcome it sincerely. So I think that the philosophy and ideas that are fundamental and foundational to our Chinese university, including Master Xing Yun's humanistic Buddhism, are also truly worthy of rejoicing in and celebrating.
Master, a doctoral student from the Department of Philosophy at Peking University, asked, "May I ask, Khenpo, you mentioned exoteric and esoteric Buddhism, and that when the mind is pure, the land is pure, has a very deep and profound meaning. Could you please briefly explain this? Thank you."
Actually, I already gave a very short and concise explanation just now to everyone here. It was covered in the first part of my talk earlier today. But to add further, in fact, when the mind is pure, the land is pure. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is a text called Beacon of Certainty. In Beacon of Certainty, it explains this through an analogy. For example, take a bowl of water. Beings in hell see it as burning molten iron. Hungry ghosts perceive it as foul pus and blood, while animals and we humans see it as cool, thirst-quenching water. For some realized beings and celestial beings, they see it as pure, divine nectar. And for even higher beings, such as bodhisattvas at the 8th level and above, they see it as a very pure and untainted kind of radiance. In the presence of the Buddha's profound wisdom, it appears as the great boundless luminosity, entirely free from all conceptual elaborations. So then, why is it that a simple cup of water is perceived in a unique way by every sentient being, each according to their own perspective and experience? Actually, from a philosophical standpoint, the true nature of water is considered to be pure. If the true nature of water were not pure, for instance, hell beings would perceive it as molten iron, while hungry ghosts would see it as pus and blood. Then, does molten iron contain molecules or atoms of pus and blood? Or if we examine its particles with our wisdom, we would have to say that what hell beings perceive is invalid, it is unreasonable. And what hungry ghosts see would be correct. If we continue this reasoning layer by layer, then what the Buddha perceives is the purest and most real. This is the essential teaching when combining the exoteric and esoteric traditions. This is a very important matter. So, it's not just about our own perspective on a simple glass of water. It also includes our understanding of the world. In fact, for an ordinary person, someone whose practice is particularly poor, what they see is extremely chaotic. For example, if someone is in a state of anger, when someone is in a particularly unhappy mood and looks at Hong Kong, they feel it's dirty, messy, and poor in terms of public security. I've met people who, when asked about Hong Kong, say, "No, it's too free here, too chaotic." They go on and on talking about many negative things. But if someone with a particularly pure mind looks at it, the whole land of Hong Kong appears very dignified. For someone even purer, the afflictions and troubles we see in this Saha world simply do not exist for them. So on this issue, if we have the time to carefully observe, we will often find that every aspect of the external environment is indeed closely related to our own mind and inner state. This is a conclusion reached by thoughtfully combining some theories from both the exoteric and esoteric schools. I think this conclusion is actually very simple. Especially in our esoteric tradition, there are certain views from Dzogchen, great perfection. With this view, there's no need for a lot of words. Through our own mind's perception of the external world, and then become aware of what its true nature really is. My water is almost finished as well, originally pure water.
So, Khenpo, here's a profound question. Could you please use Buddhist philosophy to explain the true and ultimate origin of life in detail? This is a question from one of the students here today. Please give us your valuable teaching and guidance.
Actually, regarding the fundamental origin of life, I personally think that many people used to learn about and study Darwin's well-known and influential theory of evolution extensively, and suddenly humans just appeared. This has had a significant impact on human society. Of course, when saying this, there may actually be some people who really don't agree. But if sentient beings suddenly appeared, just like mushrooms sprouting up from the ground, and then at the end died as if a fire had gone out or water had dried up, this would significantly undermine the true meaning and essential purpose of our existence and our core values. So, for example, some Christians claim that Charles Darwin, when he was 72 years old, also deeply regretted it. There are even reports that he repented many times for the very theory that he himself had acknowledged. Therefore, from the Buddhist perspective, within the cycle of the 12 links of dependent origination, the origin of life should be without beginning, with every sentient being wandering within this cycle of samsara. And life has no starting point. It has been drifting until now. Finally, when you attain realization, when you no longer need to revolve in samsara, it is just like a seed that, once burned by fire, will never sprout again. From then on, this life transforms into a kind of wisdom. According to the perspective of the Yogacara school, this is called pure transformation of the basis.
Homage to the greatly kind Guru. I am a disciple who graduated from National Taiwan University's Law Department. My question is, if I cannot now go to the institute to follow you and become ordained in a big city like, for example, Taipei, Taiwan, where there may not be a monastic community, especially a Tibetan one, if there is no such large monastic community to rely on and live together with, that is to say, in Taipei, Taiwan, some Tibetan masters also live in typical ordinary apartments or residential buildings themselves sometimes and interact very closely and frequently with lay people, so the environment is not really all that pure. In such a situation, how should one uphold the pratimoksha vows? If one breaks them, there is no monastic community to perform the kamavakana ritual for confession. So if one has broken the precepts, how should one confess? I would like to ask the Venerable Guru.
I think that in the city, actually, if a university student wants to become a monastic, I often say this: think it over very thoroughly and carefully consider your decision. Because for many young people, ordination is a lifelong commitment. You can't do it impulsively without careful thought. You must observe and consider for a long time. Only after you have a certain plan for your life can you become a monastic. Of course, some people want to become monastics. And throughout human history, there have been many remarkable eminent monks and great masters who also manifested as monastics, which is truly admirable. However, in the city, I think that generally it is possible to uphold the pratimoksha precepts as a layperson, and as a layperson, one can also take the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts. This is also a very important and solid foundation for developing genuine bodhicitta, and is one significant category among the fourfold assembly of Buddhist disciples and practitioners. In this way, living as a layperson in the modern city and urban environment, studying while upholding some lay precepts is also very good. I know that in Taiwan and other places throughout Asia, there are also many people, including the respected Thupten Norbu and many other renowned Tibetan Buddhist teachers and masters,
who often have excellent and meaningful exchanges with everyone on Buddhist topics and teachings regularly and frequently. As a university student, whether in school or outside in society, or after leaving school, if you develop such a sense of renunciation, as a monastic myself, I also rejoice in this. When I had just graduated from school myself, I kept thinking it over, and later, looking at society, I saw that in this world people still get married and have children, and live the same kind of life as everyone else in the world. Perhaps there isn't much meaning in that, so I eventually chose to become a monk. Of course, when I first started, whenever university students or intellectuals wanted to ordain, I always advised them to think it over carefully. And only after careful and thorough consideration should they choose their own path in life.
Master, if you do not mind, I have a few more questions for you. Thank you very much, Khenpo, for your insightful teaching. I would like to respectfully ask you, every day I dedicate merit to animals that have been killed. Sometimes when I remember I make such dedications, I hope that if they are reborn again in future lives, they can also be vegetarians and avoid eating meat. May I ask, Khenpo Rinpoche, is this kind of dedication truly meaningful and effective? That's my first question for you. The second is, should I dedicate merit for them to be reborn in the Pure Land, or should I dedicate for them to be reborn as humans? Or in a place where there is Dharma, perhaps? Thank you very much, Khenpo.
I think there are certainly many ways to dedicate merit. The King of Aspiration Prayers and the Way of the Bodhisattva, chapter on dedication of merit. In many other dedication texts, the dedications are similar. When we dedicate, we need not insist on a specific wish, like making them be vegetarian or become something specific. Wishing for them to be free from suffering and attain happiness is broader in scope. What kind of happiness or what kind of state they attain. Let it follow its own karmic conditions. This might be even better. Otherwise, if it's vegetarian but one day really can't manage to be vegetarian and eats meat again, that would be more troublesome, so better to wish it free from suffering and find happiness. All the dedications in the King of Aspiration Prayers include wishing all beings to be free from suffering and be happy.
Now let me ask one last simple question before we finish. Then today's Q&A session will basically be over and concluded for today. A lay practitioner from Shenzhen in southern China is now working in a city in northern Guangdong province at present. There are many mountains over there. He sincerely hopes to properly hang more prayer flags in that city. How should he hang them to do it in accordance with the Dharma? Thank you, Master.
Actually, many people may not understand the meaning of hanging prayer flags. In our Tibetan Buddhism, hanging prayer flags is, for example, if there was a car accident and someone died, hanging prayer flags at that place, the spirit of the deceased will never again feel in that place, because in cases of unnatural death, generally, one has to continue experiencing it up to 500 times in that place. But in places where prayer flags are hung, such fear and suffering will not be experienced. Also, for the ashes of the deceased, for the spirits of the dead, if you do some virtuous deeds for them, then hanging prayer flags is extremely meaningful and truly meritorious and beneficial for them in many ways. Furthermore, when we hang prayer flags with good intentions for the living, if many things are not going smoothly, or if one's body and mind are unhealthy, hanging prayer flags at such times can have a significant effect. The specific place to hang them may depend on your situation. It should be in a relatively clean and tidy place, somewhere not easily trampled by people. Also, it shouldn't affect the overall appearance for everyone. Especially in Han regions, hanging prayer flags is difficult. Even if you hang them, others might roll them up and throw them away. They could end up in the trash can. In our Tibetan regions, hanging prayer flags is seen everywhere in the sacred mountains. So, for this issue, you might need to think it over carefully.
Here we have a listener who is from abroad. He wrote a thoughtful message to the teacher saying, "Thank you so much for the inspiration." He was sincerely expressing his heartfelt gratitude for the inspiration that the teacher brought to him. Thank you very much, Master. Let us once again give a warm round of applause to thank the teacher for sharing their teachings with everyone. so my apologies due to time constraints. Today, Khenpo has already answered many questions. Today, our Khenpo Sodargye, there may still be some individual questions that haven't been answered yet. We will do our very best to answer any questions you may have on our Wisdom and Compassion Buddhist website. Everyone can visit the website in the introduction. Now we move to the final segment. Let's invite Professor Xue Yu from the Chinese University of Hong Kong to give a summary and present a commemorative gift to Khenpo Sodargye. Please give him a warm welcome.
All right, thank you. Unknowingly, more than 2 hours have already passed. I don't really have a formal summary. I'd just like to share my own personal reflections. During these past 2 hours, I think we've truly experienced the meaning of when the mind is pure, the land is pure. Why do I say this? Because as Khenpo was teaching us the Dharma, our minds were listening to Khenpo's teachings and our hearts became purified. Then this place of ours becomes a pure land. And this pure land is right here among us. Then we can expand it to our families and further to our society, expand it to our country and even to the whole world. Then our world would be a harmonious world. Our world would be a pure world. So today we are very happy and grateful, filled with great Dharma joy and spiritual bliss. We also thank Khenpo Rinpoche sincerely and deeply for bringing us such a pure world and pure hearts today. All right, once again, thank you, Khenpo.
Tonight's lecture concludes here. Thank you for your attention. Please kindly rise. Let us all please give a warm round of applause as we say goodbye to Khenpo Sodargye and also to Professor Xue Yu. Thank you, everyone.